Hey everyone, it's Zara and I am back to film my January reading journal, so let's dig in. So first of all, we have these pages, which I wasn't exactly sure how I was going to use them when I set up my reading journal for the year, but I decided to kind of do a guesstimation on how much I'm reading each day time-wise. I'm never going to start a stopwatch. I'm never going to pay attention exactly to, start finish, to track the exact hours or the exact time or the exact pages. I pick up a lot of different books in a day generally, or I'll pick up the same book a couple of different times. So for me, it's hard to track pages read, which a lot of people will track. And I just don't see myself consistently forcing myself to try to track that. So I thought this would be a good way of kind of same idea, tracking how much time I'm committing to my reading, but it's an estimation. So is it going to be exact? No. Are there going to be times I get it wrong? Yes. But it still kind of gives you a good idea about what I'm reading or how long I'm reading. And you can tell I read most of the days. There were a couple of days I didn't read kind of in the middle end of the month because I was on vacation. But for the most part, I read nearly every day and, for a few hours every day. Then getting into my overview for the month, I'm still not sure I love the new layout that the Happy Planner did for the reading journal, or well, I guess it's not a reading journal, but it's a currently page is what they typically call this. I'm not sure that I love this arrangement. I really, was settled in the arrangement they had last year, which had kind of a column here, and then I would put all of my books on this section. But I made this one work. I figured I'd at least try it and see if I could do it. A little bit of a tight squeeze. I probably could have sized these different, but this was the same size I was using previously. And also I read 13 books, so that also didn't help with trying to squish them all in, but yeah, I think it turned out okay. I still have my favorite book of the month in here, as well as the number of books I read, 13, and the number of pages, 5,369 pages. So yeah, kind of a look at what's to come. Then I have my monthly where I track when I started and finished books. I like how this turned out. I actually really like the simplicity of using the dot stickers, which are from Mojo Jojo Plans, and then the florals are from Live Love Posh, and then I just have like an S and an F to say start finish. But I really liked that, especially on days when I had multiple things going on. These were both days that I had off, I believe, so a lot of reading took place on some of those day off areas. And so, it gets a little clunky when you're trying to fit more than, 2 boxes on a page. So I really liked how that turned out. I probably will continue that. Then I have my sort of goal setting for the month of January. This has a lot of different sections, so we'll just try to take it bit by bit. On this side, I use the habit trackers to track if I'm reading a Kindle book, a physical book, or an audiobook. And I really like how that, turned out. It's a little hard to, sometimes it looks like, I'm not really reading a ton. But, I'm still reading nearly every day. But yeah, just what I'm reading or format kind of varies. Then I have up here, I have my Bookopoly and Roll Your Read trackers. Bookopoly is from the Shelfie Chronicles, and then Roll Your Read is from Peanut Butter Taco. And they're just two kind of reading games, reading challenges that I have set up in the back of my planner. And essentially, if you haven't seen that before, Roll Your Read, there's a set of cards that I have over there, and I roll 2 different dice. I roll 1 dice to figure out what color card I'm gonna have. There's 7 total. And then I roll a second dice to figure out what number on the card is gonna be my challenge or what book I read. So I rolled that I would be reading an orange book, and then I rolled a 1, which was a debut author. So that's how I ended up with that one. And then for Bookopoly, kind of like Monopoly, you roll 2 dice, 2 6-sided dice, and then you have this, Monopoly board. So I rolled an 8. I ended up at new to you author. And then the next time I roll, so for February, I rolled whatever that is, 5, and then I ended up at Electric Company. So you just kind of keep rolling and moving around the board. And for Bookopoly and Roll Your Read, I wanted to at least do 1 per month of each of those. I don't necessarily intend on finishing it all. I don't know that I'll complete all of the prompts, but I figured this would just be kind of a fun added bonus, and I had the stickers, so I wanted to use them. And coincidentally, both of them were new to you authors. So I just read multiple books that were new to me authors, just since it's kind of an easy prompt, and I had multiple books that fit those prompts anyways. And I didn't do any, I just did the 1 of each. I didn't re-roll or anything for January. February I might, but we'll just kind of see how the month goes and stuff, but at least doing 1 of each per month. Then here I have all of the books that I wanted to read or that I started reading and what I finished. I didn't set this up in advance. I think sometimes at the beginning of the month I'll write down what books I have checked out from the library. I'll write down, book of the month that I'm getting, or something I have on my shelf that I want to read in the month, and kind of set it as my TBR. But then I'll also just add to it for what I'm reading, or what I continue to read or add to it throughout the month. So I read nearly everything. The only book that I started and didn't finish in January was Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Last year I used a bingo from the Shelfie Chronicles, which was really fun, but I never won any bingos because people are so fast. Someone reads 3 books in the first day or 2 of the month and then gets the bingo, and I was on a no spend, so I decided to just make my own bingos. I liked the idea of them, but I didn't really want to buy the stickers again this year. I didn't necessarily feel like I had to do someone else's challenge, if that makes sense. It is a lot of fun, but it was fun to make my own bingo too. And I think a lot of the bingo squares will repeat. So I have Bookopoly, Roll Your Read, Book of the Month, and a classic. Those are going to be, I think, my squares that pop up on every single bingo. I'll kind of shift them around just because those are some of my goals. I think it'd be nice to read more classics. I think, doing the Bookopoly and the Roll Your Read, those are just goals I've set for myself anyways. And then I get my book of the month every year, and if I don't read it right away, I feel like I get really behind. So there was a number of book of the months that I had this summer that I didn't finish. So anyways, and then for the rest of the squares, I'll just kind of fill them out with prompts that I think are fun. So for the month of January, I decided to do new to you author, continue a series from 2023, first book in a series which I didn't finish or didn't complete. My birthday's in January, so I did a book that had a birthday in it, and then just the middle is a free space. So yeah, I think this will be kind of fun. It's, essentially kind of setting goals for myself for what I want to read, and, filling them out as I go. Then I had my priorities. I'll usually try to jot down a couple of goals for the month. So I have some library books that I checked out in December that I wanted to read in January that I still am trying to finish up in February, but I at least read one. I think I've read at least one of them, and then audiobooks too. I wanted to read on the plane versus watching a movie or, just vegging on my phone. So that was a good goal. And then read each day, which I almost completed. I think there were 3 days I didn't read anything. And then there's note pages in the monthlies as well, and I didn't use them this month. So then we'll swap to my kind of journal part. First of all, I have my Goodreads tracker. This one is from the Shelfie Chronicles. The stickers are as well. And I just track when I finish a book, what format it's in. So I read 13 books this month, and then you can see probably most of them, or at least half of them, were audiobooks, and then, you know, kind of a smattering of the other books. Like I said, right now I'm reading audiobooks with my husband. We're reading the Harry Potter series as an audiobook. And so that's why there's quite a few audiobooks this month. I still haven't used these trackers. This one's from Plan with Elise. And I might still color these in later. And then I have my monthly tracker also from Plan with Elise, and you know, where I track how many books and how many pages, so that I can see at the end of the year, you know, kind of how my months shaped out compared to one another. Okay, so now moving into the individual books. The first book I read was Same Time Next Year. This one was just a short story or a novella. I got it as an Amazon First Reads, which you pick a free book each month if you're an Amazon Prime member, and it's a lot of fun. So I picked this one because I thought it would be a fun seasonal reading, you know, New Year's was obviously when I read it. It was a short story about, it was romance. It was a short story, and you had Britta and Sumner. Britta's a waitress at this like sports bar that attracts a lot of hockey players. I think her brother or half brother is on the hockey team, and they have a hockey player from Canada who is going to get deported back to Canada, and they essentially convince her to do a green card marriage. You know, you marry him, and if you stay married for a year, you know, then you can just divorce next year. You know, he'll be part of the team. He'll be able to, you know, get his big break, because I think he just needs like another year to you know, be discovered. Everyone really likes him. He's a good guy. I thought this book was really fun. I mean, it's not groundbreaking. It's not going to be anything that, you know, changes your life, but I thought the characters were likable. There was a good amount of spice for how short it was. It was only 144 pages, and I liked how the book was told. I think it kind of hit all of like the highlights, all of the big events in a year's span, and kind of took off some of the fluff that sometimes you have in books or romance novels. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, and especially fun if you're reading it around New Year's. Then we have Enjoy the View. This is another book in the Moose Springs, Alaska series. I read the first two last year, and essentially the premise, you've got this cute little town in Alaska, and none of the town likes tourists, even though the town would only really exist and thrive with tourists. So it's just a kind of a weird and like beating a dead horse, you know, with this premise, and it just keeps going on and on and on. And eventually you feel like the people would wake up and figure out that they need the tourists, and they couldn't survive without the tourists. But anyways, this one just was my least favorite out of the series. I mean, there's no more books after this that I know of, and I think I'm done with this series, even if there's more. I have a hard time when I start a series. I kind of want to finish it, especially if it's not something I totally detest. But this one is just hard because, you know, the other books were fine. Nothing groundbreaking, nothing that'll change your life, but they were fun. You know, nothing too crazy. Could read them, wouldn't read them again, but you know, enjoyed it while I read it, kind of a thing. So for this one, you're following Easton, is one of the townies that you've met in previous books. He's a mountaineer. He's kind of this big hulking guy who's really sweet, and you know, he's kind of an outdoorsman, takes tourists around to climb mountains and things like that. And then you have River, and she is a kind of like a failed actress. She's been in Hollywood for a while, and she's hit a rough patch, and essentially her career is floundering, so she's trying to get into directing. And by directing, she is going to be making a tourist video for the like tourism board of Alaska for this town. And no one wants her to make the video because, again, they hate tourists. They don't want more tourists. And so instead of just, I don't know, finding a different project or things like that, she decides that she's just going to make her own video and then try to sell it to the tourism board later. But they can't film in town, so she decides she's going to climb a mountain, and that's going to be her video. I don't know. I just had a lot of problems with this. I mean, it sounds okay, but her film crew and her, they were just so dumb. They just didn't follow directions. They did really stupid, dangerous things. And then I was just shocked that Easton, being this mountaineer, this, you know, very experienced climbing guide who, you have these people's fate in your hands, didn't just call the whole thing off after multiple instances of people just not paying attention to the rules, not listening, thinking they didn't need to listen, thinking they were better than that. It just really bothered me. And so I think that really impacted my enjoyment of the book. I hated that part of it, and I just couldn't believe that there would be a romance between two characters that, just I didn't blatantly disregard the rules of the one, and then it's like, oh, I find that charming. So I had trouble with it. I also didn't really understand how filming a tourism video was going to like restart her career in Hollywood. That premise just didn't make a lot of sense to me. So I just really struggled with this one because I just kind of hated a lot of things in the book. I gave it 2 stars. I mean, it's not like the worst book I've ever read, but it really bothered me. A lot of different parts of the book just from its core bothered me. So anyways, I don't think I will continue the book if there's any more in the series. I think I'm done. But moving on to my favorite book of the month was The September House. This one was kind of a horror, ghost, thriller kind of a novel. So you have Margaret and Hal, who have always wanted to buy a house, just have never made it work. But they get this really good deal on this Victorian house that is basically their dream. They're buying this dream house. It's beautiful, what they've always wanted. Well, after they move in, I mean, everything's great, but then every September, stuff happens. The walls start to bleed, ghosts appear, and they're all ghosts of people that have died in the house at some point. And they're all very obviously like brutally murdered. But Margaret is not a quitter. She loves this house. This is her dream. She can follow the rules. She can make it through every September, and, you know, whatever. It's going to be fine. Hal, on the other hand, it's their 4th September, I believe, and he can't take it. He runs away. Well, then their daughter Catherine starts calling Margaret, and eventually Margaret has to admit to Catherine that Hal isn't living at the house anymore. He ran off, you know, and Catherine doesn't know anything about the house being haunted. She's their like adult daughter, and Catherine says, well, I'm coming to visit. We're gonna find him. We need to track him down. You need to be more worried about him. And Margaret's like, no, don't come. Wait till October. And she's like, no, I'm coming now. So it's kind of, there's funny parts. There's obviously scary parts. But there's a lot of humor because you have Margaret trying to hide the house or like the ghosts or the weird things in the house from Catherine. She's trying to you know, make everything seem, you know, normal at the house, and, you know, do this little investigation, you know, look for Hal, but also keeping Catherine in the dark about the spookiness of the house, or the kind of darker elements of the house. So there's a lot of funny parts. Yeah, I really liked the characters. I thought it was really well written, and I really enjoyed the story. I don't want to give too much away, but it was great. I really liked this one. So yeah. Then we have The Saturday Big Tent Wedding Party. It's like the 10th or 11th, 12th book in the #1 Ladies Detective Agency, which is just a really fun series. It takes place in Botswana, and you've got these, well, you've got Ma Ramatswe is the main detective, and then you have Ma Makutsi, who is the, like, junior detective or assistant detective. I can't remember what title she has now, but they're both, you know, they run this detective agency, and they help people solve their little problems. So it's like a nice cozy mystery. It's nothing that's gonna blow your mind. You know, it's not scary or anything like that, but it's just fun, and it's, you know, kind of gives you a slice of life for, you know, living in Botswana. They have different values, different, you know, things that come up. But anyways, so obviously this one includes a wedding. One of the main characters gets married, and then the mystery they're solving is cattle are really big in Botswana. Apparently it's like a big beef producing country, and so cattle are a source of wealth, and then also just like pride, and people love cattle. And so someone comes to them who he found 2 cattle that were killed by a person. It wasn't like an animal or anything like that. So he's trying to figure out who killed 2 of his cattle. So that's kind of the main mystery that they're solving. But a lot of it is just kind of, you know, just life, you know, how they live and things like that. The mystery almost takes a little bit of a backseat in a lot of these books. But they're cozy, they're fun. I give it 4 stars because they're just fun to listen to. They're fun to read. My husband and I both listen to these books. I usually try to check them out when we go on a long car ride or things like that, so that we can listen to it then. Then we're listening to the Harry Potter series. So this one I listened to all on my own, which is why I finished it in 2 days. Harry Potter, if you've never read it before, you got to read it. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban is one of my favorites. Both book and movie wise. Like, it's when it starts to get a little bit darker. It, you know, I feel like the characters really start to develop well. Love it. You have Sirius Black, who's escaped from Azkaban, the wizard prison, and, you know, there's kind of this manhunt to find him, and so, you know, everyone's being extra cautious, being extra careful. You know, and then Harry's in his 3rd year of school, becoming a wizard, learning all there is to learn. It's great. 5 stars. Then we have Kiss the Girl. This one is the 3rd book in the Meant to Be series, but I will say they're just basically Disney fairy tale retellings. I think Disney produces the books or publishes the books. But there's 3 books in the series so far. This one is the Little Mermaid themed book, and I love these books. I think that they're really fun. Each one is written by a different author. Each one is in its own kind of universe. They don't necessarily overlap. You don't have to read them in order, I don't think. Yeah, they're just fun books. So for this book, you have Ariel and Eric, obviously. There's some pretty heavy hitting, you know, allusions or references to The Little Mermaid. Kind of knocked you over the head with a couple of them, which, you know, it's not subtle. So anyways, Ariel and Eric. Ariel is a part of a girl group with her sisters, the Siren Seven. They're on their farewell tour. They are saying goodbye to music, or performing as this band. They're going to go explore other pastimes, other activities, other interests. But of course, Daddy, I can't remember what his name is, but their dad decides that Ariel should go solo and she should be a solo act. And she doesn't want to go solo. She wants to do her own thing. She wants to start writing music. She doesn't want to sing it and perform it anymore. She wants to still be in the music industry, but she doesn't want to be in the limelight. And so she meets Eric. She and one of her sisters, or two of her sisters, go to see him perform with his band. He's like an up-and-coming band, you know, playing at small venues and things like that. They meet, they have like this cute little date, and he mentions that they have an opening on their crew to sell merchandise, because the crew member who was supposed to sell the merchandise ran off with his girlfriend, and they're leaving for tour tomorrow. So of course she runs off with Eric to go on his band's tour. So it's cute, it's fun. Yeah, it's, again, maybe, you know, nothing, you know how the story is probably going to end if you've ever read, listened to, you know, The Little Mermaid, but it was just really sweet. I thought it was fun. I liked the kind of rock star element to it, the band groupie, you know, tour bus. I liked the characters. I did think there were a couple of nice little twists. So yeah, I thought this one was cute. I've enjoyed the whole series. I think the first one still might be my favorite, which is, I think it's called like After Midnight, or I can't remember. That one is, or Before Midnight. That one is, the Cinderella one is the first one in the series. But like I said, they're all independently written. You really don't have to read them in order. This one was just the newest one, and I enjoyed it. Then we have Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, another one of my favorites. I don't think I could pick a favorite Harry Potter book, to be perfectly honest. But I really enjoy this one. This one is Harry Potter's 4th year. He's got the Triwizard Tournament, you know, tasks that he has to complete in addition to his schoolwork. It's fun. There's a lot of things in the book that, you know, never made it to the movies that are just always fun to revisit in the book form, because you've got Spew, which is, you know, Hermione's crusade for the house elf, you know, freedom and rights. You know, you've also got Harry kind of starting to, you know, hit puberty, or, you know, notice girls in a romantic way for the first time. And that's just always kind of fun to see this, like, character develop throughout the years. So yeah, really enjoyed that one. That one I started by myself, was intending to finish by myself. And then I made the mistake. We were driving for my birthday to go to my sister's house, and that is a 4-ish hour drive. We also charge because we have electric cars, so 4.5-ish hour drive when you add in charging, there and back. So then of course we listened to the audiobook, and then he wanted to keep listening to the audiobooks with him, so now he's listening to the rest of the series with me, which slows down our you know, trajectory, our progress for reading the books, especially some of them are very long, but I do enjoy listening to the books with him, and I enjoy the Harry Potter audiobooks in general. This is probably my 3rd time listening to the audiobooks, and I definitely recommend, if you've never listened to the audiobooks before, I think they're worth a listen to. Then we have Dirty 30. This is the 30th book in the Stephanie Plum series, by Janet Ivanovich. She comes out with one every fall. It's like clockwork, and I know they're predictable. I know that they're nothing earth-shattering, but I love them. Also, I read it around the time of my 30th birthday, so this was just kind of extra fun, you know, that the 30th book also coincided kind of with that. So you get Stephanie Plum. She's a bounty hunter. She's always a little bit down on her luck in terms of she has really bad luck with cars. You know, she's not a great bounty hunter, so she's not like top tier. She's not taking down these criminals easily, I guess. But they're fun books. In this one, she was dog sitting for her boyfriend's like golden retriever named Bob, and she wasn't worried to leave him at home because he chews up furniture. So he comes along on a lot of the adventures, and that's just kind of like this added dose of fun. And kind of her main story involves a jewelry theft. And so the jewelry store owner wants her to find the security guard that went missing, and he'll pay her money to find that security guard. But then she also has the guy that robbed the store trying to find him because he was a failure to appear in court. He's her actual bounty. So she's kind of trying to figure out what's going on and you know, looking at multiple people involved in this robbery. But it's fun. I've read all of the Janet Ivanovich, Stephanie Plum books, and they're just a good time. Yes, they get repetitive. Yes, you know, it's kind of the same story all over and over again, but they're just fun. They're comforting. Like the #1 Ladies Detective Agency, they're ones that I'm just going to keep going with. I enjoy them, and yeah, it's kind of like a warm hug. Then we have The Villa. This one was really fun. I have had this on my list for a while to read, and I finally picked it up, and then I read it in 2 days because I just couldn't put it down. You have Emily and Chess, and they are best friends who are both authors. Emily writes romance novels, and then Chess writes kind of like self-help guru type novels. And Emily's having a hard time. She has writer's block because she's going through a divorce with her husband, and so she doesn't really want to write romance. And so Chess invites her. Chess is like very successful. Yeah, her career definitely took off much more wildly than Emily's, which she's a little jealous of. And Chess invites her to come to Italy for the summer. She's rented this villa. They can write, they can explore Italy, and you know, they'll have a great summer together. Well, this villa has a history of a murder there. In the 70s, a musician was killed there. And so you go back and forth on time frames between Mari, who was living at the villa the summer of that murder, and then you have Emily and Chess. And I liked the way it was told. They also had excerpts because Mari is another author who wrote a book, who wrote this like horror novel in the 70s, and it was kind of groundbreaking because not very many women wrote in that genre, and it was very well received. And she wrote that book that summer as well, that the murder took place. And so you have excerpts from like Mari's book. You have these like fake journal articles or newspaper articles about Mari or about the murder, or you know, about the people she was with at the time of the murder in the 70s. So it's just, I really enjoyed how it was written, how there were a lot of different elements for it, and yeah, I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. You know, there were a couple of things at the end that I was a little picky about, but all in all, I thought this one was really fun, and like I said, I couldn't put it down, so that's always a good sign. Then we have Harry Potter books 5 and 6, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. You've got Harry is in his 5th year of school, and you have the Order of the Phoenix, which is kind of like the good guys in the fight between Lord Voldemort and, you know, the rest of the world. The Order of the Phoenix is essentially Dumbledore's, you know, group of good guys, the good guys that are truly fighting against Voldemort, even though the rest of the world probably doesn't, you know, love Voldemort. They're the ones that are kind of doing something about it. And then you have Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. This one is one of my favorites too. I keep saying that, but I love this one because the problem I have with Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix is that everyone's mad at Harry. It's hard times for him, down on his luck. It's kind of depressing mood a lot of the times, but at least in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, he's kind of happy. It's kind of his, yeah, like it's the teenage angst, and it's fun, and I don't know, it's just more lighthearted before things get really dark for the end. And I like this one because it's just kind of a bright spot in the series, and I enjoy it. So Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. And again, I read both of these with my husband, so we were racing to finish them before they were due back at the library because I couldn't renew them because someone else had a hold on them. And so we finished this one an hour before it was due back at the library, but we did it. And then we just have one more to go, and then I'll listen to audiobooks on my own for a little bit. Then we have Dead Silence. I actually had this one as a recommendation from someone else on YouTube, Krista Michelle, and she had recommended it, and I really enjoyed this one too. So she had kind of described it as being, well, and I mean, a lot of descriptions have it this way as well, but it's essentially this Titanic-like spaceship, this cruise ship, this luxury cruise ship goes missing on its maiden voyage in space and just disappears without a trace. No one knows what happened to it. So fast forward 20 years, you have this crew of, essentially they're repairing, you know, they're kind of out in space repairing these communication beacons, and they're at the end of their, I can't remember, I think it's 18 months that they're out doing these repairs and, you know, kind of have their contract for. So they're at the end of their 18 months. They're literally need to go back, meet the ship to go back home, the bigger ship to go back home, and they hear this distress beacon. But the distress beacon is out past like the communications, I guess, developed area of space, you could say. It's out past that, and they're not sure if they should go investigate it or if they should just tell someone about it, because it sounds like they're kind of at the far boundaries of space. Even if they told someone about it, it would take a really long time for, you know, for them to make it back to tell someone, and then for someone to go out and investigate. So essentially they decide they're going to go investigate and see what it's about. Well, they find this ship, this Titanic of space, and they decide that, you know, this is a great find. And, you know, like shipwrecks of old, if you find a deserted spacecraft or, you know, abandoned or whatever, broken down, you can kind of do a finder's fee or, you know, collect the artifacts inside and sell them. Like, you lay claim to them. And this is such a huge, fancy luxury ship that they can make a lot of money, even if they only get a little bit of, you know, kind of the piece of the pie. And they're worried about, you know, other people figuring out their claim and stealing it out from under them. And they're also worried about the company that owns the ship, you know, kind of tying them up in legal proceedings, or saying that they didn't get the ship, you know, that they didn't really find it, etc. And so they decide they're going to go on the ship. They're going to grab a couple of like statues or golden what are they? Faucets. Or, you know, a couple of treasures from the ship that like had to be from the ship. And then they'll go back and, you know, lay their claim to it, and, you know, hopefully their claim will stick. Well, they go inside the ship, because they're also not sure exactly what happened to the ship too. It's just floating out here in space. You know, and everyone is dead inside. And I'll leave it there because it's good. I really enjoyed it. I don't read a lot of space futuristic novels. That's not totally my genre, but I love the Titanic. I love the idea of like a space Titanic. There's a lot of there's just little interesting bits on this one. I really wanted to keep reading, although I will say I started reading it when I was alone in my house. It was dark, and then I got to the part where they found the ship, and then there's like, they can tell there's dead bodies inside, but they haven't been on the ship yet, and I was like, oh, I don't know, now I'm a little scared. But yeah, read it when it's light outside, read it with a friend. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. Yeah, I wanted to give it 5 stars, and then I decided to give it 4. So like a 4.5 star. It was good. Then I have The Fury, which was my last book, number 13 for this month. And this is the same author that wrote The Silent Patient. So if you've read that, that's part of the reason why I picked this up as my book of the month for January, was because I've read other things from this author. But essentially you have a murder that takes place, like a closed door murder on an island in Greece. And you're trying to figure out, not necessarily who did it, he calls it more of a why done it, instead of who done it. And so you spend a lot of time learning about the characters before they got to the island, kind of their history with one another. But you have this very famous actress, and then a lot of other people that are involved with entertainment or stage or movies or things like that. And she's the one that invites everyone to this island. There's, I think, 7 of them. And to get away, to relax, and then someone ends up dead. So, and it's told by Elliot is the narrator, and he is, at first it took me a little bit to get into his, I don't know if it's rambly is the right word, but he interjects a lot, like, in his storytelling, and yeah, obviously there's a lot of, like, opinion kind of interspersed in there as well, so it took me a little bit just to kind of get into the style of writing, but I appreciate trying something different, or yeah, just really showing the characters' personalities through their narration. So all in all, 4 stars, enjoyed it. Yeah, and I would yeah, pick it up if you're interested, or if you've read his other books and are interested. I thought it was worth a read. So that was everything I read in the month of January. I'll try to just keep it quick, but just kind of a quick overview. I'm getting a couple of my challenges filled out, but nothing, you know, monumental. I did decide for my Read the States, I decided to track it, like I said in my setup video. I'll pick a book that, you know, is in that state, but then I'll also include tallies. Like, so far I haven't picked a book for California, but I've had 2 other books that they go to California, they mention California, or, you know, usually I try to pick that they're actually in that state, that they went to California, but I just picked a different state to put that book in. I don't know if that made sense at all, but basically I'm trying to determine how many books take place in certain states, or how many books I read that take place in California or take place in North Carolina. I already have 2, and that's not a book or a state that I would have thought a lot of books came from. And then at the end of the year, I'm just going to tally up like what was my most visited state, or most, how many books did I have? What state had the most books set in that state? If that makes sense. And I did have like Kiss the Girl and Dirty 30 both had road trips in them. So like, you know, they're not in the state for long, but they went to a couple of different states. So I'm including it. So yeah, that's one of my updates. And then I also have my book bingo I read. I've got quite a few in here. I probably could do a couple of more, but I've at least got 6 so far that I've crossed off. I have book Tetris, where I'm trying to include what genres I'm reading. This is kind of fun to fill out as well. And then I have my Roll Your Read and Bookopoly, which we already went over. So that's everything for the month of January. I hope you enjoyed watching this, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye now.